Military conflict between the US and China in South China Sea is of significant strategic importance to India and other nations who are on the verge of decoupling their ties with China. With more than 11 billion barrels of oil, 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, 10% of the world's fisheries, and most importantly 30% of the world's shipping trade makes South China Sea the most coveted territory in the world.
An illegal militarization on artificially built islands in South China Sea brings us to our next topic on art of war, attack by stratagem. A ruthless adaptation of a classic war concept by Chinese Communist Party. The skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations. With his forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire, and thus, without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attack by stratagem.
In our previous video, we described how China laid plans and waged war for its world domination through Belt and Road Initiative. Many countries that are still allied with China do not realize how they are being sucked into Chinese neocolonialism. We will elucidate China's attack by stratagem philosophies with three renowned military concepts: diversionary tactics, negotiation skills, and the cabbage strategy, and how countries should prepare and take preemptive measures to counter these attacks from China.
Why is China building artificial islands, investing billions of dollars on setting up military installation in South China Sea? Why are they stacking up several ships, including fishery boats, all around the sea? Why?
The pertinent question is, how is China able to accomplish a massive project like this without much rancor from its neighbors, who have equal arrogates to the island?
Let's face it, entire world was flabbergasted when the images were released of these man-made islands. Astonishingly, not even US with its Brobdingnagian presence in South China Sea did anything to stop it.
Let's get you the answer to how this was all being made possible by China. Stay with us on this, as this requires an extensive understanding of world politics and interpretation of key business dynamics. A blueprint to world domination was scripted on September 7, 2013, when Xi Jinping announced the BRI strategy during his official visits to Indonesia and Kazakhstan. One Belt, One Road was a way to impose People's Republic of China's burgeoning influence around the globe.
Without subjugating South China Sea, China's world domination is incomplete. To make it really happen, China must fight three large forces: Russia and India to gain supremacy over land, US and India to gain mastery over sea. China cannot risk taking Russia and India at the same time. So it brings Russia into its grand scheme of things by making Russia as its partner in One Belt initiative. And India sternly boycotted the Belt and Road Forum to register its opposition for including China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which passes through Gilgit-Baltistan within BRI roadmap.
The US is China's most formidable enemy. US firepower on naval warfare far exceeds that of China. With increased presence of US Navy in South China Sea, it is impossible for China to establish a military assets on Parasil and Spratly Islands. This brings us to our first concept, diversionary tactics. Manipulators use evasion and diversion tactics to keep the spotlight of their behavior. Let's find out how China used diversion tactics to dispute its claim based on vaguely defined 9-dash line in South China Sea.
China and North Korea share a very complicated relationship. However, to prevent United States and South Korea from invading North, China is forced to ally with North Korea. Moreover, both consider the United States as their supreme enemy. According to a 2001 Department of Defense report, China has supplied Pakistan with nuclear materials and expertise and has provided critical assistance in the construction of Pakistan's nuclear facilities. China decides to leverage its friendship with Pakistan and indirectly supplies North Korea with nuclear technology.
In early 2004, it revealed that Pakistan's nuclear scientist Dr. A.Q. Khan had sold gas centrifuge technology to North Korea, Libya, and Iran. A prominent use of gas centrifuge is for the separation of uranium-235 from uranium-238, a critical component towards building nuclear bombs. In a critical chain of events, Chinese firms assist in building nuclear facilities in Pyongyang. North Korea goes overboard and conducts nuclear tests on January 6 and September 9, 2016. The US sanctioned many Chinese companies for allegedly aiding North Korea's nuclear program.
The entire world takes notice of this insolence act of North Korea, and to alleviate military threat on South Korea, US naval fleets are diverted to the Korean peninsula. China managed to divert the attention of the world successfully without having to fight any battle with US. A brilliant brilliantly implemented diversionary tactic on United States. Time and again, China has successfully deployed this strategy, and more recently against India in Galwan Valley by withdrawing its troops from the valley. We will cover this demilitarization in Galwan Valley in our next chapter on tactical disposition.
What would be your decision if a major construction company proposes to build an amazing complex on a barren land that you own and requires you to pay when you start earning out of it? A zero investment in a multi-million project sure sounds like a lucrative offer that's very hard to resist. But if you have had experience dealing with such crooks, then surely this would have sounded like a shady deal to you. This is exactly what's happening with most of the countries in BRI who happen to see billions of dollars flowing into their economy as Chinese investment. Likes of Sri Lanka, Philippines, Djibouti, Maldives, Pakistan and Montenegro are already victims of such shady deals, selling off their assets to Chinese companies as they fell under severe debt. To come up with such beguiling deals, you surely need some excellent negotiation skills. This brings us to our next concept: negotiation tactics.
China undertook a massive negotiation strategy to bring Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei and Taiwan within BRI framework. Philippines was initially reluctant to join BRI. On April 24, 2016, Filipino President-elect Rodrigo Duterte said he would jet ski to Spratly Islands and raise Philippines flag on it.
Boundary dyan sa Spratly, Scarborough. Bababa ako, sasakay ako ng jet ski, dala-dala ko yung flag ng Pilipino at pupunta ako doon sa airport nila, tapos itanim ko. Then I would say, this is ours, and do what you want with me. Bahala na kayo.
Philippines and Vietnam were a natural ally to the United States until then. But China lures its finance secretary Carlos Dominguez from lauding China's Belt and Road Initiative and encouraging Chinese investment in its infrastructure project as part of its own Build initiative. Rodrigo Duterte, President of the Philippines, gets sold out after visiting Beijing on October 18, 2016.
Vietnam yields to billion-dollar investments by Chinese firm to upgrade its legacy railway lines.
Tiny Brunei finds it more lucrative to join China's Grand Belt design and forfeits its claim on the area it had rights on.
Malaysia's Prime Minister Najib Razak negotiates a deal with Xi Jinping to bail him out of financial scandal where he and his allies were accused of embezzling huge sums allegedly used to buy everything from artwork to high-end real estate around the globe. Najib eventually signed up for BRI to sustain and legitimize his corruption charges.
Taiwan is increasingly dependent on Chinese trade and hence does not resist China's 9-dash line boundaries. China employed diversionary tactics to take the world's attention out of the South China Sea, negotiated and exploited corrupt regimes to propel its Belt and Road Initiative. China's domination of the South China Sea is well underway. With 50% of the task completed through diplomatic means, the remaining 50% requires exhaustive resources such as sand, iron, steel and cement.
China buys a considerable amount of natural resources at a negotiated price from countries like Australia, Brazil, Peru and India. China is critically snubbed for illegal mining in countries like India, Mexico and other Latin American countries. It's a shame that many of us have succumbed to bribery and have been exporting valuable minerals to fulfill Chinese ambitions.
With all the resources from across the globe and unopposed by US, Philippines, Malaysia and Vietnam, China started reclaiming land in 7 spots in the South China Sea. Look at this satellite image from 2014. You could see substantial Chinese ships collecting across remote reefs in the Spratly Islands, an archipelago in the South China Sea. In this image, these ships are rapidly pumping sand and rock upon the Fiery Cross Reef. By 2016, the ridge has a hospital with more than 50 doctors, high-speed mobile connections, an airport with a runway of 3,160 meters, an advanced radar station, a missile defense system, and about 200 troops. China is essentially building naval bases. The more islands they have, the more ships they can support, the more territories they can slowly take control. This is classically known as the cabbage strategy.
Any country that can claim the Spratly Islands can extend their claims to 90% of the South China Sea and gain exclusive rights to the surrounding territories. By having assets and occupation on these islands, it will directly be adhering to United Nations Exclusive Economic Zone law, which states countries in the South China Sea have exclusive rights to all the resources and trade within 200 nautical miles from its shores.
China has now firmly laid its claim on 90% of South China Sea, With the South China Sea firmly under Chinese control, China can now flex its muscles and bully its neighbors by being subservient to China.
In our next chapter, Art of War, Tactical Disposition, we will provide tactical positions of armies discovering each other's condition. This concept is of great importance, especially with Vietnam and Philippines backing out of BRI and joining forces with the US again. This situation could get seriously worse over the next few months with US aircraft carriers Nimitz and Ronald Reagan back in South China Sea countering Chinese military drills.
When the United States and China are locked in a range of diplomatic disputes over issues ranging from the coronavirus to Hong Kong, Taiwan and trade wars, all BRI non-aligned countries, especially India, Australia, South Korea and Japan, should join hands with US to stop all Chinese movements in and around South China Sea, Indian Ocean and the Pacific, crippling Chinese economy and forcing it to relinquish all illegally occupied land and sea regions around the world.
Counterintuitively, if China starts extracting oil and natural resources from the South China Sea, then there would be no stopping them from controlling the region and becoming the greatest superpower, overthrowing and even destroying the US completely.
If you have watched this entire video and still haven't subscribed to our channel, then click on the subscribe button now. You will get notifications on our next video as soon as it gets premiered on YouTube.